In DDAM, the configure icon allows us to configure various parts of the system. Now the first tab under the configure menu is the product license screen. Now licenses are divided into serial numbers, and each serial number is allocated to a particular node. So if you have a 10 node license, you're able to collect data and monitor 10 individual nodes on the network. And remember, a node could be a DNS or a DHCP server, or it could be running both. Now the product's quite flexible, because if you decommission a particular server, you can actually deallocate the serial number from that node and then reassign it to another node if you deploy a new server. So the license is quite flexible. Some license keys have an expiration date. Those might be evaluation licenses or subscription only licenses. And new licenses can be uploaded by obtaining a new license file from your vendor and then just uploading it into the system. Moving along, we also have users and roles. Users are very simple to set up. A user is either an administrator or they're a standard user. Standard users have roles assigned to them, and the roles actually determine the access that that user gets in the product. So if we look at the roles tab, we've got a role assigned here. Let's just modify that role so we can see it. And we can see there's one user allocated to this role. I'll just pick that. You'll probably find that the user is called customers. But if there were other users in the system, then they could be selected and assigned this role as well. And the role basically specifies whether they get access to these icons. So activity, alerting and reporting. If these boxes are unticked, these icons will disappear. And if they're ticked, then we can specify within each section what the user gets access to. So under activity, we can say whether they can view DNS and DHCP activity or all. Under alerts, again, we can see whether they can view alerts or whether they can actually manage the alerts and the alerting methods. And the same thing for reports as well, whether the user can view the reports or manage them and the reporting methods. Under collectors and nodes, this is where the collectors are actually configured. If we look under SOBEC, SOBEC is a run IP appliance that actually has two nodes assigned to it. So it has its own node with a license serial number of 5, and underneath that node we've got the packet capture methods. So basically what SOBEC is doing is it's got a raw packet capture collector installed, listening for traffic on ETH0. Now you can assign additional packet captures for other interfaces if you've got a multi-home system. But SOBEC is also taking a feed from an Infoblox appliance, which is defined as a separate node with its own serial number. And what this is doing is processing syslog messages. So the Infoblox box on this IP address is generating bind9 query logs via syslog, and then SOBEC is actually collecting that information. So you can see that you can actually use a DDAM collector to concentrate all the syslog traffic from numerous different devices. Now there's some useful features up here. Synchronize collectors button basically allows you to push out the configuration to all the collectors. Now when you think about how the alerts are generated directly off of the collector, so we have to be able to tell the collector what alerts to listen for, and this is basically why you need to synchronize the collectors, in order to push out that configuration information. We can also get a collector status box as well, and this basically just tells us that everything's running okay. The master server goes around and collects all the alerts and reports off each of the collectors, and it does that every few minutes, and we can see when that last happened. So if a collector starts getting out of sync and the last download completed time is looking like it's in the past, then there could be a communication problem. But you'll also see an error report as well, like a timeout or some other issue. The other thing we've got is activity log transfers, and this allows us to upload DNS and DHCP activity to an FTP or SFTP server. We can see here we've actually got some configured already. So this allows us to archive DNS and DHCP activity so that it can be searched or integrated into a SIM or SEM system, a security information management system. So what this particular configuration item is saying is that DNS query requests are going to be sent via SFTP, and we can specify the file format that's going to be generated. So we've got all the different fields that we can specify, so you can reorder them and switch them off. You can specify the delimiter that's going to be used between the fields, whether to compress the activity logs or not, and also the format of the timestamp, whether it's in human readable format or CTime. The CTime is the number of seconds since 1st of January 1970, so it's not very human readable, but it's great for scripts. So it's very customizable. So you can either integrate that into a SIM system or literally just upload it somewhere, so that if you need to search for a particular query from several months ago, although it's not in DDAM anymore, you will still have the data stored somewhere. The last item we've got here is the audit log, and this basically just gives us a list of all the changes that have occurred in the system recently and who did them. In fact, we can see here there's a report publish method that was modified, which is what I did when I was looking at the reporting options. So that's pretty much it for the configuration section in DDAM.